all day. So in today's video, I want to ask you, have you ever had a near-death experience? You know, a lot of people say they have. Have you? Let me know. Let me know. Have or not? It's something that you need. You should make me your girl. Your girl. Oh, yeah. Hi, love. Welcome to Post Traumatic Bliss. Let me go grab my coffee because you guys are not talking. You're not saying nothing. Let me grab my tea. Oh my goodness, I can't have tea. Everything here is dirty, dirty, dirty. Dirty kitchen, dirty everything. And yes, no more tea for me. Ooh-wee. It's cold. It's getting cold in here. How's the Netherlands? What time is it? Should I wear this? I think I wore it the other way. Wait. Reverse course. No, that feels good. That's the right side up. Today we are talking about, let me choose a topic, NDE. People who say they have a near-death experience. Have you heard somebody say they've had a near-death experience? And do you believe them? Do you believe people who say they've had a near-death experience and they've seen the other side? The typical NDE experience, people say they die, usually during like an operation, and they levitate. So when they levitate, they see they're out of their body. They have like an out of body experience. They see their body lying right there on the table, and then after the death, they start to levitate, and then they have like a guardian, somebody from the other outside world usually, and they'll have this person will come to them and he'll start showing them their past, and he'll start showing them what they've done in this life, and then they'll see like what they've done in this lifetime, whether they were agents of positive change, or they did nothing, or they failed their mission. Usually they say that everybody, all of us here, we have a mission. And usually the mission of this planet is to bring the energy of this planet up, to raise the energy of this planet, because this planet is on a very survival, the energy of this planet is usually more survival. People have a lot of attachments, and people are attached to things. People are attached to material things, money. People are attached to the color of their skin. On this planet, we are attached to the kids. People are attached to their relationships. People have an attachment. So to break that is to go. So one of the things that when people have a near-death experience is that when they are going up from this world into the next realm and the seventh towards the heavens, they break away from material attachment. They break away from family. They break away from material things. You know, they just stop detaching. Until they become like pure light. They detach from their kids, from their money, from their home, from their friends. They kind of just detach. And once they detach, they are like, oh, whoa, what was I doing with all these attachments? You know, I'm a light being. I'm light. I don't like this burden. So our planet has a dense energy. So this is what they say, that we are too attached. So there's some sort of attachment. So what do you think? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Have you had an NDE, near-death experience? Do you think that people who say that they've had a near-death experience are actually telling the truth, or are they faking it? Let us know. Somebody wrote me a message. Let me return. Let me Google a near-death experience somebody has had.
In our national lead, a remarkable, inspiring story of one Air Force veteran's sacrifice and resilience. In 2005, doctors gave Israel Del Toro a 15% chance of survival after his Humvee rolled over an IED in Afghanistan. He suffered third-degree burns on 80% of his body, was in a coma for 3 months. Doctors said if he did survive, he would need a respirator to breathe. They also said he could never walk again. Not only did he defy all odds, he actually went on to receive the Purple Heart. Jake Tapper recently sat down to speak with Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro Jr. about his most recent accomplishment, his memoir, A Patriot's Promise, protecting my brothers, fighting for my life, and keeping my word.
Okay, I don't think this one will turn into an NDE experience. Um,
The Joe Rogan. Is that what it is? Yeah. The Joe Rogan experience. When I got reached out to about you was that you had gotten through a near-death experience. And I really didn't want to read into it at all. I just wanted to ask you about it. Sure. So something happened. You had an aneurysm that burst inside internally. Yeah. Is that what it is? Yeah. So, I mean, the medical description is I had an undiagnosed aneurysm, which is a ballooning of an artery at a weak spot. Arteries can dilate to get more blood flow, but an aneurysm is like one specific spot that, for one reason or another, is weak, and it starts to sort of give way, and it'll bubble outwards. And as that bubble grows bigger, and this takes decades, it's a very slow process, right? I have a ligament in the wrong place, and
Okay.
that set in motion.
so he says he had an aneurysm. That's when like a vein in the brain will burst and you can go into a coma.
So we're out there, and in mid-sentence, I felt this sort of pain in my abdomen, like, ooh, what was that? Right? Like, not kidney stone pain, but worse than indigestion, right? And so I sort of twisted and turned to see if I could work it out, and then nothing helped. And then I finally stood up. So I said, maybe I can walk it out. And as soon as I stood up, the floor just reeled away from me, and I almost fell over. What was happening is my blood pressure was just like tanking because I was losing all my blood into my abdomen, and my body hadn't compensated yet. So I was just like my head was reeling, right? So I sat back down, and I said, was something I never thought I'd ever have reason to say to my wife. I said, something's wrong. I'm going to need help, right? And you don't want to ever have to say those words, right? And you're fit, I'm fit. It never crossed my mind that I would ever have to say that unless someone
I'm doing
shoots
good.
me or something, right?
Alright.
Like, but not in my life. I stopped War Report.
Today we're talking about near-death experiences. If you've ever had one, a near-death experience. Or, somebody who has ever had a near-death experience. Let's talk about that.
I give all that gambling with your life. I gave it all up. I had a family. We're in this beautiful spot. Like, are you kidding? It can come after you here too, right? Who knew, right? So, she dragged me through the woods. I had my arm around her shoulder. I'm sort of like a stumbling drunk, right? And she's sort of dragging me through the woods, and she gets me to the car, and puts me in the passenger seat of the car, and we're a 1-hour transport to the hospital, right? And I'm bleeding. I'm losing a pint of blood every 10 or 15 minutes. My wife didn't know this, and thank God I didn't either, but I was literally a human hourglass, right? And she put me in the passenger seat of the car, and I'm lying there. Now I'm starting to go blind, right? Which is one of the things that happens when you lose too much blood is you go blind. She ran into the house.
Oh, I didn't know
electric
that.
white just took over the world, and that's all I could see. Electric white. That's if you bleed out, that's the last thing you'll see. And then darkness, which is what I finally got to was the darkness. But so she ran into the house, told the girls, the teenage girls. One of them ran out. The phone line didn't work, but the girl, one of them, was able to get 1 bar of signal, like in one spot on the driveway, like 1 bar, and she called the ambulance. And the ambulance guys came, and you go into something called compensatory shock if you're bleeding out, and the body senses in its miraculous way. It senses that there's a 5-alarm fire going on here, and we gotta tighten our game, right? So it literally shuts down vascular, like blood flow to parts of the body you don't need, like your legs and your arms, your skin, and it sort of hoards the blood in your chest, your abdomen, your chest, and your brain, around your heart, right? Those things go, you're dead. So it collects the blood around there and keeps it there through muscular tension, right? You don't know you're doing this, but what happens is your blood pressure goes back up, and suddenly you're sort of back in the world. In its miraculous way, it senses that there's a 5-alarm fire going on here, and we gotta tighten our game, right? So it literally shuts down vascular, like blood flow to parts of the body you don't need, like your legs and your arms, your skin, and it sort of hoards the blood in your chest, your abdomen, your chest, and your brain, around your heart, right? Those things go, you're dead. So it collects the blood around there and keeps it there through muscular tension, right? You don't know you're doing this, but what happens is your blood pressure goes back up, and suddenly you're sort of back in the world. And I was no longer going in and out of consciousness. I could see again. The ambulance guys get there, and they're like, how you doing? I'm like, well, belly pain, but I don't want to be a complainer here. I'm feeling a little better, maybe blah, blah, blah. My wife, and this is why there's a famous statistic, married men live longer. My wife is like, you know what? Because they were going to leave me. They were like, oh, it's a hot day, drink some water. You probably just dehydrated. Oh, shit. Yeah. My wife is like, no, he's going to the hospital. I watched him. He was in and out of consciousness. He couldn't stand up. He was going blind. Like, what's it take? Yeah. Guys, what's it take to get a guy to the emergency room? So anyway, they took me. My body stayed in compensatory shock for that hour that it took. And, but I was losing blood. And then I got to the hospital, and my body couldn't hold compensatory shock anymore. And I went straight into end-stage hemorrhagic shock, which is you're dead in 10 or 15 minutes, right? And I went off a fucking cliff right as we got to the hospital. And they estimated my blood pressure was 60 over 40, which is like rock bottom. They estimated I lost like 2/3 of my blood. If you lose more than 2/3, even if they transfuse you and top you off with, full complement of blood, they pump it into you. If you lose that much blood, there's complications that happen with coagulants and all kinds of things like that will kill you. So people can die of blood loss with a full complement of blood that they've gotten from transfusions, just because this chemical process gets initiated and they can't reverse it, right? And that starts to happen when you've lost 2/3 of your blood, which is right where I was at, right? 10 minutes later, I'd have been dead. And so they rushed me into the trauma bay, and the doctors knew immediately what was going on. And one doctor had this sort of large gauge needle, and he started, and she asked my permission. I had no idea I was dying, right? And he asked my permission to stick it through my neck into my jugular, which didn't look like a lot of fun. And I was like, really? Is this totally necessary? Like, we really need to do this? I was like, why? Like, in case there's an emergency? And he was like, no, this is the emergency. Like, I had no idea, right? I'm 10 minutes from dead. I have no idea I'm dying. Zero, right? Thank God, because I would have been terrified, and I would have been thinking of my family, and I would have, please, yeah, you don't want that, right? And so he said, this is the emergency. I was like, well, if you say so, go ahead, have at it, right? So while he's working on prepping my neck, and it didn't hurt at all, right? So if you ever have to have this done, don't worry about it. But while I'm lying there and he's sort of working on my neck, it took long. It felt like it took longer than it probably actually did. But while I'm there, all of a sudden, and I have to stop and say, I'm an atheist. I'm a lifelong atheist. I'm a rationalist. I'm not spiritual. I'm not a mystic. I'm not woo-woo.
Today we are talking about near-death experience. And this guy on Joe Rogan is describing about his near-death experience. That's kind of what I'm listening to. If you've had a near-death experience, let us know. If you believe in near-death experiences, let me know. What are your thoughts on people who say they've had a near-death experience? So we are right to that point where he gets into the hospital. He's been bleeding. He has an aneurysm and he's in hospital. And they're trying to do life-saving emergency stuff where they have to stick a needle into his neck. And that's what like they're doing, trying to stick a needle in his neck.
Like, I'm nothing, right? And my dad was an atheist and a physicist. I have to say all this because of what's coming. And I'm still an atheist, by the way. But so all of a sudden, I sensed below me and to my left this black pit open up, this black abyss, like this infinite black void. And I was getting pulled into it. And it's not like darkness had taken over the world. The world was here. I could see the doctors. I was talking to them, right? Here I am. But the darkness was contained in this hole that was underneath me, and I was getting pulled into it, right? I didn't know I was dying, but I had this instincts of like a wounded animal. Like, if I go into the pit, the infinitely dark pit, I'm not coming out, right? Like, I just sensed, like, don't go in there because you're not coming back, right? And I started to panic as I felt.
That's funny. He says like he knew that all of a sudden they're trying to save his life and then he's not there anymore. And he's in this darkness, like this dark void. And he knows that there's a pit of darkness. And if he goes inside that pit, he knows that he's not going to come back out.
Myself getting drawn in, right? And then my father, my dead father, appeared above me and to my left. Now, there's a whole body of inquiry of NDEs, near-death experiences, and I didn't know anything about this stuff, right? I didn't know anything about it. It didn't interest me. I'm not culturally prepped for anything like that. I'm not Christian. I didn't see angels. Like, I'm a zero in that regard, right? There's my dead father above me, right? He's been dead 8 years. I love him. But I was not happy to see him, right? I was shocked. I mean, literally, I was, Dad, what are you doing here? Like, and there he was, and he communicated to me. And so what I saw, see isn't quite the right verb, but I don't know if there doesn't exist the right verb. I sensed / saw him, and it was his essence, his energy, his presence, right? It's not like I see you, right? It's like, oh, there he is, right? It wasn't with that clarity. In some ways, it was with a deeper clarity because it was his essence, right? And there he was. His presence was right there. And above me and to my left, it was like quite specific. And he communicated to me, again, not with words, but with some manner that I understood, that I can't quite explain what it was. But basically, the idea was, you don't have to fight it. You can come with me. I'll take care of you. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be scared, right? I'll take care of you. I was horrified. I was appalled. I was offended. I was like, you're dead. Why would I want to go with you? You're dead. You're the opposite of what I am. Why would I possibly want to go with you and be dead with you? Because I'm alive with my family right now. Like, I'm not going anywhere with you. Like, get out of here. And I said to the doctor, you have to hurry. I'm going right now. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was sort of outbound.
Okay, so this guy dies and he goes into the abyss and he sees his dead father. And his dead father tells him, come with me. You don't have to worry about anything. Come with me. And he's telling his dead father, like they're communicating obviously telepathically. And he's telling his dead father, why the hell should I come with you? It's like, why the hell should I come with you? He's telling his dead father, like, you're dead. I'm not about to be dead. This is so funny. Actually, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard about a near-death experience.
And once that
Thank you
happened,
for my nails.
there's no inbounds. And I sensed that. I said, you got to hurry. You're losing me right now. So what'd they do? Well, they transfused me. They stabilized me with 3 units of blood. Eventually, I needed 10 units, which is a full complement of blood. And so let me just pause for a moment and say, please donate blood. Like everybody who's listening, I'm alive. My daughters have a father because 10 people who I'll never know donated their blood. And when you donate blood, you are literally allowing another person to live. And one day, you might live because someone else donated blood. And doctors can't manufacture that shit. Like, if you donate blood, it takes an hour, it doesn't hurt, and your body will replace it in a couple of weeks. It's the ultimate free lunch. And I think it's quicker than a couple of weeks. I think it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to get up to 100%, I think it's a little long, but whatever. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, we're talking about human life here, and if you want to be part of something greater than yourself, it's blah, blah, blah. Right. All these things that we all kind of want, like, how do I participate? Like, nobody needs me. I'm not part of anything. I feel lonely. Give blood, man, and you'll be part of something amazing, right? And you might. So I give blood regularly. So at any rate, there's my pitch.
Okay.
My name is Ahmed Karim, and I was an imam.
Today we're talking about near-death experiences. Let me know if you've ever had a near-death experience.
Now, the New York man who barely escaped death as he was pushed onto the subway tracks in front of an oncoming train. Ethan Pilgrim is here with that story. Good morning, Ethan.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you guys. This is the point that you're laying on the tracks. Do you realize that the train's coming?
It happened in a flash. When I was midair, I knew that I had been pushed.
While he survived the initial push, the 45-year-old knew he wasn't out of danger. The third rail, explain it for people who aren't New Yorkers. Well, why is that so dangerous?
So there's a third rail that runs along the entirety of the MTA system. It's the electrified rail. If you touch it at all, you will die immediately. You cannot move. Don't kick your feet. Don't struggle. You will get electrocuted. You will die.
So you're screaming for help?
I am. A woman did start responding to me about 90 seconds in, and she tried to keep me calm.
Joe says after about 4 minutes, he could hear the sirens coming.
Be about to drop a meal on the tracks at that same location. We push the meal. So the meal's under the train right now.
4 minutes is an eternity under a train.
It sure felt like it. As the sirens were approaching, I closed my eyes, because then I guess I felt kind of safe that help had arrived. And they dragged me a few feet to the opening between the 2 subway cars, and they told me to raise my hands above my head, and 2 firefighters on the platform pulled me up onto the platform, and I heard my ribs crack. It was unbelievably painful.
Joe had a fractured skull, 4 broken ribs, and a ruptured spleen. But to everyone's amazement, Joe had survived.
I can't thank all of them enough, and especially John and Jonathan for getting me out from underneath that one train.
When you were pulled off that track, you asked about one thing.
My dog Leo, he's 16. He's a dachshund. He's a rescue. So I looked at the firefighters and I said, I know I'm really, really hurt. I'm hurt really bad, but you need to help me get to my dog.
He spent 7 days in the hospital, 5 in ICU.
The nursing staff there, the care team,
Somebody
was
threw this
amazing.
man off
Truly
the
amazing.
train, like
Police
the
eventually
tracks.
arresting 23-year-old Kamel Hawkins for pushing Joe onto the tracks. He's been indicted on multiple charges, including attempted murder, pleading not guilty. Anything you would say to that person?
I'm choosing not to focus on the anger, resentment, or negativity. He's 23. I don't know much about him. I'm focusing on healing, recovering, getting myself back to my life.
These sneakers, the shoes he was wearing that day, a reminder of what happened and what he's overcome.
Wow, somebody threw him off the train tracks. Hi, welcome back. Today we're talking about near-death experiences. People say they've had near-death experiences. I know you've seen them on YouTube. You've seen them pretty much everywhere. What do you think about them? Hi, love. Have you ever had a near-death experience? Yesterday I was watching these near-death experiences of people saying that life is a stage. People say they've seen. Hello, Eric. Hello. Let me know what you think. Have you had any other experience? People say they died and they met Jesus. I don't know what you guys think.
When I was 17 years old, and the year was 1972, I went to a party, and at some point during the party, and I really don't know why this happened. I'm not claiming I went to the hospital and was diagnosed dead, but I must have either lost consciousness or I don't know what happened. But I started to move. Actually, to begin with, I heard a deep, deep rumbling, and this rumbling was really, really. It was not only low; it was vibrating through my body and through everything I could perceive. And it should have been scary, but it was just intriguing to me. It wasn't scary at all. And then suddenly, before I could think, I was moving through this black expanse. And I call it a tunnel now, but I wonder if that's just because what people have called it over the years. It was 1972, and I had nothing to call it then. And I'm moving really, really fast, and I don't know how fast. And up ahead, I can see a light way off in the distance. A very bright one, but it's not coming into this tunnel. And as I'm moving towards it, I have this thought that keeps going through my head. I'm about to learn the secret meaning of life. And it was just really, it was the only thought I had. So as I got near the exit, or what I would call the exit, the opening where the light began, I was above these valleys and these lush fields of flowers, and these flowers were gigantic, some of them. And there were rivers, but the flowers I particularly remember because they could have been 40, 50, I don't know, maybe 100 feet big. But I'm up above them and I'm looking down. So as I'm looking down at them, this music is filling the air, and I realize that it's coming from them and apparently from everything I'm seeing, and it's resonating within me. And as I look at them, they're moving. They actually have movement, and I understand, and I don't know why I understood, but I understood they were there to support me. So I continued to move forward at a rapid speed, but it was all very pleasing. It was all very comfortable.
And up ahead on the right, I saw three tall, what I would call tall figures. And they were, I think they were men and women. I don't really know which was which, but that's what I perceived. Because their features weren't really clearly delineated. As I looked at them, I could see that they were beings of light, I guess is what you would call it. And back behind them was that really bright light, but it was still off in a distance. But everywhere I was filled with light. And I wasn't aware that I had a body. I never saw hands, feet. I was aware. I felt exactly like I was there, like I do right now. But I just didn't have the ability to do this, nor was I trying to do it. And as I approached these three beings, they greeted me and they let me know that there was going to be a being of a very high order coming to meet me. And I was very excited. And I need to stop here and clarify something. I'm sure a lot of your viewers and yourself have probably heard this before, but there wasn't any language. Nobody's moving a mouth, and it's instantaneous communication. Not just instantaneous thought, but instantaneous understanding and comprehension. So I understood I was going to meet this being, and that bright light in the distance, which was brighter than all the light we had, started moving closer and closer to me until finally it was slightly above and in front of me. And I would say I perceived it as a male presence and very large, maybe, I don't know how large, 15 feet, 20 feet in height. But this light was being generated off of him. And it wrapped up everything, including myself. And it was, it's very, these parts are always hard to describe because all we have are words. But it was as if somebody was giving me the warmest greeting, hug, and love that I'd ever received in my life. It was all encompassing. I was wrapped up in it, and my mind began to flood with all these questions. And I remember the being was very happy about it, not laughing at me, but really joyful would be the word. And I could sense the joy. I was part of that joy. And I started to rapid fire ask questions. And again, ask there, it was just, you began to think it, and then suddenly you had the answers. So hypothetically, if I thought about a drop of water, I would become the water. I would become the rain. I would become the ocean. I might become the clouds. I'm being hypothetical here. That wasn't one I asked that I recall. But at some point in these questions, I asked, what is the meaning of life? And the being communicated to me, and again, not a word, but the feeling,
thanks, Eric.
the comprehension and understanding that it was love. And I was only 17, and I knew love more of it as a concept. I didn't really have I loved my girlfriend, I loved my dog and those kinds of things, but I didn't understand until then that there could be some love that was so all-encompassing, so amazing. And when I understood that, when I instantly understood that, I just burst out in this total joy, and I sort of went up in the air. I say I did, but I guess it was my presence, my spirit, and I started doing these somersaults in the air, like in joy. And I remember he was laughing. He was like, but not. He didn't find it funny. He felt it great. And I remember one of the questions I had was, are there other forms of life outside of the earth? And before I could even finish thinking it, because I was always infatuated with that as a kid, I was infatuated with the concept that there might be aliens. And I went zooming, I don't know how fast, it seemed like through galaxies instantly. And I looked down on a couple of different civilizations. And one of these was very, they dressed in what I would call like Roman style garb. And another one I came to was more what I would consider modern. This is 1972. But I didn't really get to interact with any of them because I was watching from above. So unfortunately, I realized later I probably could have willed myself down there. I wish I had thought of that. But it verified for me that there were other creations outside of the earth. And at some point after this, I'm taken to a black expanse.
Eric says I'm so
it's hard to
comfortable.
picture,
Yeah.
but it sounds very kind of dreary, but it wasn't. It was fine. It was warm. But I'm in this middle of, I guess, what you would call outer space, and there were stars and all these things off in the distance, and I can't quite remember if the three beings and the presence I was describing to you came with me. I think at least the three beings did. But at any rate, I was there, and suddenly in front of me there was this, I guess what I would describe as a gigantic tablet spinning through space. And it stopped in front of me, and I saw the history of the world play out. And when I say I saw it play out, it was here and it was gone, but it was all absorbed by my knowledge. I could comprehend all of it. And I understood that I was linked to that event. To those events. That the whole world was linked to me, and I was linked to the whole world. Not in words, not like, well, this is why you're here, and this is why they're there. I didn't really have that. But I had the very clear understanding that the world and I were not separate, and that everybody in the world and I were not separate. And I would just like to skip fast forward to, no, I don't recall how the world ends. A lot of people ask me that. What I was shown, I'm pretty convinced some of it was removed from me. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that to be the case. But go ahead.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, because you're on this point that you don't know how it ends, or you think some parts were kept from you. Was there anything that when you lived through it, you thought, well, I've seen this back then?
It all felt intimately familiar to me. I don't recall thinking to myself, oh, right, I remember being there for the Civil War, or I remember.
Thanks, Eric. So today I've been listening to these guys on my phone. Anyway, they are talking about near-death experiences, and one of the things they say is that when people die and they get out of this planet, they go into a realm, and a lot of people, whether they've done like things like LSD, like psychedelics, they also have those kind of out-of-body experiences. And when they get to the out-of-body experiences, they realize that we are kind of living a lie. Our attachments to our nationality, to our tribes, to our everything, they realize that all this is a lie. In the spiritual realm, you are not either man or female. In the spiritual realm, you are neither female nor male. That's the spirituality of it. Like you're not a mother or father. Like in the spiritual realm, you don't have a lot of attachments. You're free. You don't have a lot of attachments. Now that is spirituality. That doesn't mean. Hi, Savage Cookie. I do remember you. You disappeared. And you went, and I don't know where you went. Today we are talking about near-death experiences, about the stories. Maybe you've had them on the internet about people saying, well, they've had this near-death experience. What do you think about that? What do you think about it? Tell us, let us know.
Remember the creation of mountains or any of that, but it seemed normal. It seemed like it didn't seem foreign to me. And here's the weird thing. Well, there were a lot of weird things, but there was a lot of violence. And I remember seeing, and this is from a distance too, just like I was describing the planets. I remember seeing armies just rushing at each other, and death and violence. And I wasn't terrified, but it was shocking to see. So in all of this mix, well, if you could imagine seeing everything from the beginning of time and understanding everything from the beginning of time of the world, that's what I had absorbed. And what happens from here is I decided, well, I'm not leaving. And I somehow made that clear, or I thought I did. And I was told, no, you have to go back. You have a mission. And again, these are words. I'm using the word mission, a purpose. It was clear to me that they wanted me to go back.
You have a purpose. Like, this is one thing that I think I've seen in all cases of near-death experiences where people died and they went to the spiritual realm and they are told to go back. And the reason they are told to go back is because they have a purpose. They are told, you haven't fulfilled your mission and you have to go back and try to fulfill your mission. And we all have to know this, that we do have a mission on this planet. We come here with a mission. We come here with something in mind that we want to accomplish this mission. Now, if you're a spiritual being, if you're not coming from the side of the darkness, because, I believe there are people who come from the dark side and there are people who come from the light, the side of the light. And if you're coming from the light, your job is to fight the darkness on this planet. But a lot of people who come from the light, they come here and I think they get attached by material things. They get attached by money. They get attached, by, all sorts of things. And that's why they are not able to fulfill their mission. And I think that's important to know, that you can be attached to material things. Sometimes that can overcome your ability to step into your greatness, to step into your mission. And I just think this is the one thing that I think people need to learn from near-death experiences, is that you have a purpose. You're not a nobody. You came here for a reason. You came here to fulfill something that you wanted. And if you don't do it, you're going to give more room for the kingdom of darkness. Now, you don't have to be 100%, like fulfill your mission 100%. Everybody kind of has different percentages where they can fulfill their mission. But usually, the mission is you have to preach love and you have to speak the truth. That's the mission. You have to speak love and the truth. And you have, one of the things that I look at my life is, what is preventing me from speaking the truth? What is preventing me from loving? And self-love is important, because you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot give what you don't have. People only give what they have. People only give what they have. So one of the things that I have learned as a Black woman, that people who hate my skin color, like they're bringing that hate on me, is because they hate their own. Like, people only give what they have. If somebody is dishing out hate, is because they are coming from a hateful place. You can't love yourself and hate another person. It's just love does not breed hate. Only hate breeds hate. And when you're learning about people and understanding the nature of the human being, you have to understand the nature of the spiritual being, because it all depends on where you're coming from. For example, in psychology, we know that kids who come from parents who are abusive, they are the bullies in school. They are the kids that are bullying other kids in school. They are the kids taking food away from other kids. It's the kids that are bullied, that have been taught how to bully, that know how to bully, and they dish it out. People only give what they have. So whenever you see people being aggressive towards you or being mean, just know somebody hurt them really, really bad. Um, that's where they are coming from. And I think that's one of the things that we can learn from a near-death experience. So this guy,
Resisted that, and it was emphasized you have a very important reason to go back, a mission. I call it a mission. And I got surrounded in the, they weren't real close to me, but they weren't far either. And I've tried to figure out the amount. It was at least hundreds, it could have been thousands of these beings of light. And they began to sing to me, much like the flowers had, but this was much more incredible. And they were singing spontaneously. They were singing in harmony with each other, but it was all, it was spontaneous. It was all happening at that moment. And I understood they were singing in support of me returning. So I guess at that point, I must have agreed. I don't really recall saying, yes, I'll go back. But the next...
and I think that's a good thing to see. So he goes into the spiritual realm and they want him to come back, and he doesn't want to come to this planet. Like, who the heck wants to die and come back to this planet? That's why people don't want to come back. People just don't want to come back. And instead of forcing him to come back, like, they don't force it on him. They don't be like, they are not forcing him to come back. I think my mascara got into my eye. They don't force him to come back. They sing to him. They kind of like cheer him to go back, because they know, they understand, like, nobody wants to come back here when they die. Nobody wants to come back to this planet. But the spiritual beings, instead of forcing him to be like, okay, you just have to go back. I know Earth is a shithole, but you still have to go back. No, they are like, they sing to him and they tell him, you need to go finish your mission. Go complete your mission. You have a job to do.
Memory I have of anything. And by the way, all of this, I always like to point out to people, was vividly clear. It wasn't, it wasn't foggy or dreamlike. And I told people it was more clear than anything in my life, including right now, right here, the conversation I'm having. Because I just want them to understand that this wasn't some kind of, I understand what people who haven't had this, I can understand how they could feel. I would probably be one of those people if it didn't happen to me. But the next thing I know, I'm in a bathroom in this apartment where I was at this party, and I had a razor blade, and I was trying to slash my wrist because I knew, and I don't know how I knew, that if I died, I would return. And I just want to put a little caveat here. I wasn't in despair. It was the exact opposite of despair. It was
Okay,
joy.
this is the funny thing. So he gets a near-death experience, and he sees these beings of light, and they're telling him, they show him like the wars, they show him, like love is the biggest thing that you have to accomplish on this planet. And he doesn't want to come back, but anyway, they sing to him, and he comes back, and then he's sitting, he's back, and now he's contemplating, if I slice my wrists and I die, then I get to go back. He's like, then I get to go back. And he now wants to commit suicide because he wants to go back. He doesn't want to be on this planet because he realizes, I could be in a better place. Why the heck am I here?
And I was only 17, and I just wanted to go back. The human part of me wanted to go back and be that spirit again. And this is the only time I've had what I would call a mystical sort of thing happen. A very deep male resonant voice said, no. I dropped the razor blade. Somebody knocked on the bathroom door, and they said, guys, he's in here. It was a couple of guys who were at the party, and they found me, and that was how I left that. That from there, I went on with my life. But I was only 17, and there was no way for me to understand what had happened because
So he was 17, and when he's trying, he's already back, and he's like, maybe I could go back. He hears that voice that tells him, no, you're not gonna do that. And people come, they start knocking, and they're like, oh, he's here in this room. And then I think he never does that again. But that's an interesting NDE, you know, where he sees a lot. Let me see another guy.
You know, I didn't quite remember it, but when I heard it again, I instantly knew what it was.
So
He
this
said the
story,
same thing, Stephen, put your head down, everything's going to be all right. And when this being spoke, that's when something inside my brain just broke.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Veil. Today, we hear from Stephen Nowak, who shares his incredible near-death experience after a tragic accident at the age of 4. His journey beyond death, encounters with divine beings, and the discovery of quantum healing powers will inspire and challenge your understanding of life and our connection to the universe.
so these,
Hi, my name is Stephen Nowak. I was 4 years old, and I was getting ready to go to the mall. My parents were across the street, my brother actually, and I was in a neighbor's driveway. I was on a big wheel, which is a very low to the ground plastic tricycle. So my brother called to me from across the street, hey, we're going to the mall, which was basically our Disneyland at the time. So I fired down that driveway in between two parked cars, and another car was already coming. So as I came up between the two parked cars, the other car came and collided with me, and I went underneath the car. My big wheel was stuck underneath the back tire, and I was pinned underneath the big wheel, which kept me from getting run over. First thing I remember is everything going black,
oops.
kind of like fading away to a black screen. And then I remember it opening again, and I could see myself. I could see my eyes roll in the back of my head. Next thing I know, it goes black again, comes back, but I'm sitting with someone, and I'm leaning on them. And I'm leaning to the side, and I could feel someone because I'm pressed against them. I'm thinking this is a person. So I open my eyes, and my head is down at the time. It's looking down at the ground. When I open my eyes, I see someone's hair. It's almost touching the ground. It's long, it's silvery white, and I noticed also the bottom of their robe. So I go to turn and look at the person. Instead of having a face, their face was pure light. And as I look at them, I'm being pulled in. And I'm looking at their face, and I'm being pulled into their face. And we spoke a little bit. I asked them what had happened. And I distinctly remember not knowing why we weren't moving our lips, but we were speaking without talking. And as I'm pulled into this face of this light being, I start to see another world. And I get an instant knowing of, in this world, there was no peace. I mean, there was peace. There was no hate. There was no anger. There was no pain in this other world. And I wanted to go there.
So he says that instantly he's got into this accident, and then instantly he's in another world. And I've had this kind of experience before where I'm like in this realm when I know that there are no secrets. Everything is open, and there is love, and there is openness. There is like all my fears, everything that I feared in this life, that world did not have. And he goes into that world, and he realizes like we are the ones who are blind. And what's blinding us is that we don't have enough love for one another. It's the love that gives us a special kind of poverty that we are not able to see. And a lot of people, I think, don't understand that.
I wasn't quite sure at the time what it was, but what I would call it now would be heaven to me. It was an instant knowing. And that's when I started to sense, hey, I was outside of my body. There's something different about this. So the being basically told me that it wasn't my time, but they would return. And I wasn't too clear about that, about why at the time, or everything we had discussed, because we did discuss more, but I couldn't access it in my memories. So after that little talk, they tell me, Stephen, put your head down, everything's gonna be all right. I do, and then I wake up with toys a few days later. So fast forward to me being about 33, 30 years of age. I'm driving my car. I was pretty, you could say, reckless after my experience, because I knew it happened and I could feel it, but I couldn't access the memories. So I was a wild man. Driving my car very fast. I was doing about 70.
Let me see. Hello? He- Yeah, can I not go ahead with that thing? I'm thinking about staying here a little bit longer. I'll call them back.
Miles an hour coming around a corner, and then the car starts to skid out, hits a telephone pole, comes back, flips 5 times before it stopped. And during that time, I lost consciousness. And the next thing I know, I'm being wheeled into an operating room to have surgery done. I believe it was on my arm at the time, to fix something that had happened there. And I get very anxious and I wanted to leave. And I was literally about to get up and leave when this energy of calm and peace and just security, when you know you're okay, and this knowing came over me, and it went from my head down to my feet, all the way down, and I instantly knew I'd be okay. I laid back down, and the same being spoke to me, and I recognized the voice from when I was 4, and we had spoke, which was hard to recollect after the 4-year-old incident. You know, I didn't quite remember it, but when I heard it again, I instantly knew what it was. It said the same thing: Stephen, put your head down, everything's going to be all right. And when this being spoke, that's when something inside my brain just broke, and all this information about quantum physics, energy, what we had spoke about during that 4-year-old NDE, that's when things started to open up and I could access. Now that I had enough knowledge to...
So now he's kind of like all these things that were stored in his subconscious by these beings, they stored it in his subconscious, and he was 4, he could not realize it. Now that he's older and he gets into another accident, and these beings come to him, and he starts to recall everything that had happened in his previous accident.
Kind of process it, because at 4 I wouldn't have been able to process or even know what this stuff was. So the being shows me in a field, it looked like a blueprint, and I was told it was the blueprint of creation, and that we were in the quantum field. And they began telling me about all living beings having a blueprint in this field that they could access for healing, physical, emotional. This was our original blueprint as love, that we came into this world, kind of like a file on a computer, and that it represented the real me, and everything else was built on that, and that I could access that and get it back for healing. So the next thing I know is I'm inside this, what looked like a wagon wheel or a medicine wheel, and I'm in the center, and in the center, pure love. And they started teaching me about how we send out our energy to experience reality. So they showed me the extensions from my heart out into the outer rim of this wheel, and then it comes back. And it was sort of cycling through my consciousness for me to experience reality. And on the outer wheel, it was almost like a screen all the way around me. There were memories and imprints, things I had did throughout my life up to that point. And they told me that we can recall these with basically pieces of our soul that we spent. We can recall these back to heal, to become more whole and closer to the original way we came into the world, which I came to know later as ascension, soul retrieval. So this being's explaining to me the nervous system, how our waking consciousness is an operating system, and our subconscious is the hard drive that stores all the programs, the things like.
And when I'm talking about mental health, a lot of times, let me stop where he said, we talk about the nervous system. We talk about the heart and its magnetic ability to kind of, its quantum ability to attract things that are not even close to it. The heart can do that. So you realize that the way that the human being is created is very unique. We are not just like bodies walking the planet. And what most people don't realize is that governments know who we are. The top secret people, they know about our nature. They are trying to hide that nature from us. And the threat right now, and I think the biggest threat that we have, is AI and Neuralink. And most people who don't know who they are going to fall prey from these tech companies. They're going to come after your DNA, after everything. And when you understand your nervous system right now, you're going to understand that
putting down my car keys when I get home. Nope.
Let me see. Oh, shoot. You guys are not supposed to see that.
Knowing how to ride a bike and all these, and unfortunately, programs of trauma where we're triggered when we're in certain situations and we're feeling the same thing similar to an old experience. So that was important and key. And I found the blueprint key to healing that, because later I started to institute these things. So they're showing me all this. They're teaching me about quantum physics, quantum entanglement, how we can send out our energy and affect another's energy no matter the distance. I didn't go to college for any of that. So
see, this is kind of, when people talk witchcraft and they say like, witchcraft is real, I believe witchcraft is real because of quantum physics. If quantum physics wasn't real, witchcraft would not be possible. But it is possible for people to send out energy and it can affect you. That is why prayer works. And you see, like, people like Jesus saying, like, pray without ceasing, is because when you're praying, you're sending out energy. When you're angry and you're cursing out people, you're still sending out energy, and your heart has a high magnetic power, especially when you're angry. So when you're angry, try to say good things. Try to say positive affirmations, because at that time you have a lot of energy and it could impact a lot.
it really freaked people out who were around me. And as I'm coming out of it, I start going back to work. I was a store manager at GameStop at the time. I had a woman who had fallen, an elderly woman, fell outside my store, and she hit the cement. She was in a lot of pain. And this was the first time I figured out that I could heal or bring people into their own blueprint through quantum physics. So she falls down and she's in a lot of pain. And I put my hand on her back, and she turns and looks at me, and she says, "I'm all warm and I have no pain." And we were there for a couple minutes. People came and picked her up. And when I went back to work, I was like, that was really weird. And I mean, it was thinking on it and thinking on it and thinking on it. And I started to have this energy in my center that was comparable to being like a kid on Christmas Eve and you can't sleep, times 1,000. This energy started to guide me to like different churches to try to talk to people, find answers, things like that. And I realized throughout that I was looking outside of myself for God. and that inside myself. So didn't find God in church, needless to say. I started seeing silhouettes all around me. They were walking back and forth. Some were lighter, some were darker. Then they began communicating, and I couldn't shut off the communication. I couldn't shut them off talking in my head. And I could feel the pressure along the side of my head whenever they would pick up. And it took me a while to figure. At first, I was very scared, okay, because I'd never dealt with that. I didn't sleep for like days. And then I figured out that they were me being broadcast out into this unified field. And the unified field is basically all living beings create this field. And it's a field where we're all connected without separation, because we separate ourselves, and everything here is made out of atoms and vibrates at different frequencies in reality. Well, in this field, there was no separation. We were all the same, because we're not these bodies. We're the energy controlling these bodies. That's our true being. And we're here to have an experience.
We are spiritual beings, and everybody is talking about this, and a lot of people are so stuck up in low level things, like division. Every time somebody is sowing division in a society, in a community, they are going against our spiritual nature, our very own, true nature.
And experience all the different feelings and all the different nuances of being in dense matter, to learn something we couldn't as energy. So I started to figure out all these images were me being broadcast out into the screen. And some of them, as they were speaking to me, weren't very nice, because I wasn't nice to myself growing up. And they started to say a lot of the same things that I would say, very self-defeating, self-depreciating, until I decided I had enough and I had to change my energy in order to release these personality aspects that existed inside my consciousness, basically between me and the quantum field, which they were created. I had to start introducing different charges. And that's when the game really changed, becoming responsible for what was inside me and reconnecting to my inner child through nature and other exercises. My nervous system had become so contracted, I had to open it again. And that's something that's important, because we really trade our identity as energy, because we're born as energy, the energy of love. We trade our identity for approval, through other people. So it was important for me to get all that energy back that I had extended out into the field. And then people just started coming to me for different healing purposes.
That is the crux of the situation here, and I wish more people would talk about it, is that we trade who we are, we trade approval, we trade for approval, we trade the genuine person that we are, we trade it for approval. And most of the times I've seen myself do that by not saying the things that I'm supposed to say, that I need to say. Because you want other people to approve of you. You don't want to sound mean or hurtful to people.
And removal of dark entities, things like that, because I had sort of figured out the puzzle. And sitting with that light being, later I learned that was an angel, or what I came to know as an Elohim, who taught me about our creation and also how sacred everything is here, and what a sacred place this is to have this experience. And this being also taught me about how every living being is a part of God, is a part of this source, and how we treat them is essentially how we treat ourselves, and that everything was connected.
I think people should listen to that more, especially white people, when they realize that every living being, including Black people, is a part of God. And how you treat other people is how you treat God. And people need to know that. People need to know that. People are being incited into hate people are being incited into violence against other people. People will be incited into a genocide against Gaza, and they don't realize that every human being is part of God. And the people who are more spiritually enlightened, they know this. They know that you're being controlled, because they know that the political system, they're not giving you any facts. They're just inciting people into feeling that they are oppressed, that things are wrong because of other people. They have done this for so many years, and until people kind of begin to see that, they will do this for money, for political power. They're going to turn human beings against each other. But people who are more spiritually enlightened, they know that every human being is part of God. And when it comes to God, every human being, whether you're white, you're black, you're Asian, you're Middle Eastern, you're Indian, every human being is part of God. Is part of God. So the moment you're being used, or you allow yourself to be used for evil by another entity, another demonic entity, whether it's through music or whether it's through politics, whether it's through any portal, you're responsible. You're responsible, because you can change. You can change. So anyway, wait.
And during that NDE, I experienced feeling that oneness with everything. I instantly knew that all religions were the same, with different definitions made by people, but that it was all one, and there was no separation.
Thanks for watching today's video. If you want to learn how to create a profitable YouTube channel like this one, click the link in the description.
So, well, thanks again for tuning in and watching this live. And, I hope to see you tomorrow, love. Take care.